reconvene our meeting from May the 20th on budget. Mr.
Mr.
Crumpler?
Chair, before we do that, I'd like to
Adjust the agenda to establish a public hearing before the Wayne County Board of Commissioners on June the 17th, 2025 at 9:30 a.m. in the Commissioners' Meeting Room, Wayne County Courthouse Annex 224 East Walnut Street, Goldsboro, NC. The purpose of the public hearing is to receive public comments regarding an economic incentive agreement to Pelson Textile, which is also known as Project Istanbul, for the sale of approximately 31.83 acres containing two shell buildings valued at $7,726,200, located at 404 and 408 Gateway Drive, Goldsboro, North Carolina, 27534. Wayne County PIN number is 3519915801. The Board of Commissioners will consider the sale of the property at a price of $5,186,400 in exchange for the company's commitment to invest a total of $82,600,000 in capital improvements and create 216 jobs in Wayne County. And that would be on June the 17th, 2025. Now we need a vote on that.
so move.
Have a motion on the floor by Mr. Commissioner Williams. I don't have my computer, we had to raise our,
Yeah, we're just gonna go manual today, if you will.
Thank you.
Mr. Madam Chair,
yeah.
if I might inquire, are we not establishing some memorandum of understanding or agreement with the city in regards to those incentives?
The economic development agreement includes the city. They're a part of it as well.
So it's already included in there?
It'll be
in regards
included
to
in
the
there.
payback to the county, is what specifically I'm speaking of.
Oh, you're talking about that part of it? No, that part, a draft of that agreement has been sent to the city attorney. I have not heard back yet.
Okay.
But we are working on that.
We're working. All right,
Yes,
sounds
sir.
good.
And
Thank you.
we're doing all the inspections and planning, correct?
Yes, sir.
And everything, okay.
Yeah.
So that's gonna remain just like the other ones in the county per se.
That's correct.
Okay, ready to move forward. So at our last, where we left the budget last, I'll give you a brief overview of what was discussed by yourselves. Quarter cent sales tax, to be placed on a future ballot. Of course, that doesn't have anything directly reflected in this budget, but we also discussed, SROs, cost of, we also looked at longevity and medical insurance for retirees. We also looked at and talked about unrestricting the school funding and move all funding under current expenses. We also talked about increasing the capital small project fund from 2 to 2.5 million. We talked about teacher supplements of 1.3 million roughly towards supplements. And number 4 was a recapture of 4 of the 8 detention officers that the Board of Commissioners granted back, asked for those of the sheriff to come, and we talked about those. And that's where it was left off at. And I'll turn it back over to you for your discussion.
Any discussions?
I got
Got a
some
few
things.
things? Commissioner Gurley?
All right, so I met with the sheriff, the other day, and Tim and I were just sitting there looking over, seeing about the SRO, as far as which ones have got schools and which ones don't, I mean, which ones got resource officers, which ones don't. I think all of the elementary schools either don't have one or have a part-time one. I may be wrong on that. Based on what we were talking about, it's gonna take 5 to 6, if I'm correct, that would be with the city taking over the city schools. I spoke with, Councilman Boyette a while ago, briefly, and, if they do that, and we can cover all, I think they're covering Goldsboro High School and
Wayne School of Engineering.
Dillard.
Dillard is in the proposed MOU for next year.
Okay, so, and based on what Councilman Boyette said, he had heard some conversation of, I'm not gonna say who because he won't for sure where he heard it from, about the city, taking those. Which I think that if we could do that, if they could share, or if they could take care of the ones in the city, and I think that would be So tell me the ones in the city.
Goldsboro High School, Dillard, North Drive, Carver Heights, and Wayne School of Engineering.
Eastern Wayne Middle,
Eastern Wayne Middle will be county.
it's in the city, yeah.
But it's the county that's always covered.
But it's in the city limits. I'm talking about everything that's in the city limits.
It's in the city
Yeah.
limits.
Greenwood, Meadow Lane,
Tommy's Road.
Tommy's
Tommy's
Road.
Road. Traditionally, all of those
I know what they're,
have been covered by the sheriff.
I understand it, but I'm trying to get where we can get our,
Right.
where the city can maintain the ones in the city and the county maintain the ones in the county. And I think we could cover all the schools. That way we got a resource officer at every school.
Right.
So, that being said, I think it's going somewhere around, did we say about 900,000
$1 million, yeah.
to $1 million? That would be upfront first year cost. And then after that, it would be probably about
How many, you
325
talking about
maybe.
6 officers? Roughly how much would 6 officers? I think it would be,
Well, 7 was $1 million.
But
That was
that was,
outfitting and all.
that was everything
That
up
was
front.
everything
I'm talking
up
about
just talking about
ongoing.
salaries and.
I'm talking about salaries ongoing after that, like next year. How much do we pay? them?
Roughly $500,000.
$50,000-$60,000 a year with fringes and everything, so 6 would be $360,000, so. So from $400,000 or $500,000 would be what we would be ongoing costs if the city's gonna take
Pick up more.
take care of the ones in the city and we take care of the ones in the county. So anyway, I think that's something we need to strongly consider. So all the schools have a full-time, SRO, because he's got 5 part-times, and most of them are working the elementary schools, so they're like, certain days of the week they're there. I'm not gonna say which days, but then again, they can't work, I think, 29 or 32 hours, is that?
More than 32.
So I think the way the school schedule works, I think they work 29, I think is what they told me. So that would actually be, that would actually take 2, and you'd have a floater to take up, take up somebody that's, if they're out sick or whatever, on the part-time part. That's the part on the SRO section that I'm looking that we need to try to figure out a way to put in place.
Can I add to that?
Yes, sir.
So I'm with Commissioner Gurley, but I have a question as to kind of what we're funding, to make sure I understand it. So we have 19 full-time county SROs and 5 part-time, is what I'm hearing from Captain Cates. And then the city of Goldsboro right now has committed to 3 next year. So if you take 19 full-time for the county and 3 with the city, that's 22, right?
Correct.
We have 30 school facilities that need to be covered, if you look at traditional school settings, including alternative school. So that's a difference of 8, but we have 5 part-time. So what would it take to turn the part-time into full-time? Or I'm also curious, could we do it with part-time? Because I don't know what their schedule is, what their work.
Based on what they told me the other day when I met with them, they work like 3 days this week at this school and 2 days at the next, or vice versa, ever how they do it.
Yeah, they rotate.
They can't work, what's the hours of school day?
It's gonna be about 6 hours for instructional time.
But they're there
That way.
before and after, so.
They're gonna be there before it
so
takes in.
7
and
or 8
after,
hours.
at least.
So I think there must be somewhere around 29 hours is what they told me. So if you take 2, one could work 3 days, I don't know, I'm not getting in their schedule making, I'm just saying, basically it sounds like you could take 5 people and do 2 schools and then have 1 floater for if somebody's got to be off and they can cover whatever. That's just Chris's thinking. So if that's the case, then we would need 6. If the city,
If the city picks up at least 2 more, you've got 5 city schools covered, and that would drop you to 6. If they pick up these other schools, you might not need anything.
okay, so 19 full-time, so tell me where the full-time ones are at. No, don't do that on TV. Never mind. We'll talk about that later. All right, so that's the part on the SROs. I mean, I feel like we strongly need to consider funding the elementary schools full-time, in the county especially. And then let the city maintain the city schools, or the schools that are in the city limits. That's all I got on that. Anybody got any questions on, or,
Yeah.
all right?
Okay. I'm not quite understanding, right now, the city has committed to only 3.
For the next 2 years.
Now, how are we going to budget what the city may or may not do in their budget?
I'd have no idea. That's what I brought it up to Chris Boyette a while ago at the economic development announcement. Because I won't go speak until we make sure we had everything kind of in line, with the board.
Well, I think it's only fair, that and the city at one time was handling those schools with SROs, and then they pulled back, if I recall.
Correct.
Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, I don't think necessarily it includes Tommy's Road
Right.
and maybe others, but I think that they were funding 5 or 6 SROs.
It was at least 5, because it was what was, the old city attendance zone area, so they were
It
funding
was
5.
the old city
Right.
attendance.
North Drive, Carver Heights, Goldsboro High School. Other ones.
So if we're 8 short, and they would pick up 2 of those, then that would mean that we would have to fund 6, but we'll pull back the part-time
Right.
that we could credit back over.
Because we're funding, that's what I just love to understand as we get deeper in this conversation, like what are we funding full-time and what are we funding part-time?
You'd have to ask the sheriff.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the county, because it's my
Well, I
understanding.
mean, you
Well,
might get answer.
we have 19 full-time staff on the
Full-time.
books. I'm not sure where the part-time is coming from, because we have no part-time staff being paid out of the SRO budget.
Oh.
And I'm reaching out to the sheriff, or, to the department now to ask,
So where is?
unless they're being paid out
So
of,
how many, so let's go through the schools. You got Broad's got a part-time? Do you know?
I couldn't, your high schools are gonna be, all those are gonna have full-time. And then, your middle and elementary are covered normally by floaters. So the position might be full-time, but that SRO might be spending part of their day at the middle school and then going to the elementary.
That's the way it is at Middle.
Right, your alternative school is gonna be all day, all your high schools are all day
So there's
on
2 at
campus.
alternative, there's,
There'll be one, I believe, I have to check, one for Eastern Land and one for the
I was
alternative
told there was
school.
just one.
I have to check
Yeah,
on it.
that's what the sheriff
Right.
told me, or that's what Kate's told me anyway, so if Kate's is, you telling, he told you something different. He told you-
24, 19 full, 5 part.
But if we're gonna do full-time, all schools, we need 30.
Yeah, there's 30 traditional school facilities that you would look to cover with, if you wanted to have a full-time person there 24 hours, well,
So-
7 hours of that day.
So how many supervisors does that include? Span of control is 5 to 7, or 3 to 7.
But right now, I think Captain Cates is over all of the county
So
SROs,
there's just one supervisor?
just one, to my knowledge.
I think it's, okay.
But that's not his only job, is it? I mean, I would assume that he would have other duties other than scheduling the SROs.
I thought there was more, I thought there was several.
Have to ask the
Supervisors,
sheriff.
yeah.
The
Yeah,
sheriff
that's,
did.
yeah.
But anyway, I got a text into him,
We can get him down here if you'd like.
I just texted, he didn't text me back yet.
I'm not aware of it.
We can come back to that one, if you want to.
I would ask this. In that it's in flux, and we really don't know what the commitment of the city is. We don't know how the part-times are being funded. I would ask that we ask the school system to be involved here with some of their reserves and their fund balance to complement a dollar amount that we assign from the county, and whatever the balance is that they pick up. so that we can at least have the coverage, and then we'll find out what the cost is. I mean, I don't know how you're going to determine the overall cost where you got part-times involved that are not even in the SRO budget. You got the city who now may fund an additional 2 or 3. So what I would propose is, we know it's going to overall cost somewhere in the neighborhood of anywhere from, what, Chip, $800 to $1 million?
If you fund 6 positions, it's gonna be $1 million.
Well, if it's gonna be $1 million,
That's
then,
outfitting cars,
then
everything.
I ask that we go ahead and put a dollar amount of $500,000 into the budget for SRO expansion, and that whatever deficit there is, that the school system use their reserve funds to fund the balance, so we'll know what their overall cost is, so we can budget next year. Does that make sense?
I'm good with it.
And not only that, but it gives us time to negotiate with the city to see what their share is going to be. I mean, I know we can't speak for the city, and we certainly can't call the city in here to find out what their determination is. They haven't had their budget work sessions yet. So in order to accommodate full coverage, we'll put in $500,000 in the pot. Any deficit would be funded either from the city or from the school system.
And that's gonna be for full-time coverage, not
That's
actually
right.
full-time employee, but full-time
Full-time
coverage at every school.
Gotcha.
So let me ask you this, that y'all don't, have y'all got one at central office?
Yes.
So you don't, do you really need that one?
That, about a year or so ago, we eliminated that position. It went back to the schools.
So you don't have one there now?
We do, but for probably a year or 2 years, we did not have anybody there.
Well, we would, in the scope of things, we would eliminate that position to be used for schools
school.
itself.
So, but you do have one there now?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be, so is that the 19th one then?
I don't know if that's what he's counting.
Because it's 5, 5, and 8 is 18, right?
And I have a question for clarity. I just left a note. 24 or 19?
19.
But how are those other 5 being paid that are part-time?
That's a good question.
I've got questions out waiting.
Thank you. And what's the cost of that?
And I have no idea, I have no clue, I have no recollection, but my guess is it's probably retirees doing it.
That's exactly
is,
what
it's retirement.
Yeah. So they're probably not gonna be eligible to go transfer from part-time to full-time.
But you could use them to fill in on days off.
Absolutely.
Well, you could actually, I mean, like I said a while ago, you could actually.
I'm just
use-
saying, as far as trying to cut costs.
Right.
That's not gonna be an option like we do in
Right.
some other positions.
You could use the 5 to cover 2 schools, and like I say, the other one could fill in for whoever's out, with any school, I guess.
Right, right.
So you're telling me that Eastern Wayne has a resource officer and the school, the
Alternative school?
alternative school has one?
Give me a minute, I'll find out.
Okay, yeah. I was told there was only one.
Tip, I understand, Sheriff Pierce has lost, 5 more deputies,
I have no idea.
what I was understanding a while ago, but 2 of them's gone to Lenore and 3's gone to Department of Correction
Those are not
because of,
deputies.
Yeah, there's
Two.
detention
They're
officers.
detention officers. Not deputies.
or they've
Yeah,
gone
so-
to the Department of Correction, they were deputies, what I understand. They're detention officers. Well, there's 5 officers that are gone, no matter where they work at. Because of a few $1,000s. Have we got any plans for that, or since we're talking about deputies and schools in the budget?
I think they got,
They've got the positions.
yeah, they
Yeah,
got
they got
positions for
positions,
that. I think
but
they
it's
got.
because of the difference in the money from Lenore County to here, with 2 or 3 years
I
of
don't think
experience.
I don't think that could be the
I
case.
don't think that's the case.
There are other reasons why people leave. Anyway, I'm just trying to find a way that we can formalize our budget.
That's what we're working on, yeah.
And that's why I'm proposing the $500,000 that we assign for increasing to full-time coverage at all schools. And the difference to be picked up by the city and the school system. And that to be negotiated with the school system and the city. But we'll put $500,000 in our budget for expansion.
So $500,000 for SROs to put full-time coverage in all the schools. And this would be used to make sure that all the county schools are covered full-time.
With that comes a string,
Right.
and that is the difference of cost would have to be picked up by the school system.
And or the city.
Or the city.
Right, right.
Now, that said, the 5 part-timers, we don't know where that's being funded from. So that may pick up and minimize the amount that the school system has to put in there.
Do we don't have a budget code for that?
Yes,
But-
ma'am, there's no payments coming out of part-time line item. And when I look for the positions that are coded to
School
SROs, there's no part-time positions coded to SRO department.
But that would at least allow us to have that in our budget, and we could move forward.
While we waiting on some clarification on whatever, let's, I got some more things while I'm on it. Is that okay if I go ahead? Or do you want me to wait for him to get?
You can
No,
go ahead.
Yeah, I'd say go
So we
ahead.
can move on.
So, so the other thing is I am proposing that we figure out a way that we go ahead and build a fleet maintenance shop. Because the vehicles that we have currently, large vehicles, along with the new EMS trucks that are coming are gonna be on F-450 chassis and actually gonna be heavier and taller than what we currently have. And the, building is not big enough to accommodate the services of those. So I'd look for us trying to figure out a way to move some stuff around or look at the possibility of building the fleet maintenance out at the 117 North.
How much are you proposing?
How much
Building
does it cost?
you quote?
It was 900,000 is what they said the other
Was it
day.
9 or 950?
900.
900.
Also, they've got some, and I don't know how this is, I talked to, when I went to speak with them, they got 12 cars, that they're going to, 12 or 13 that they're looking at surplusing, trying to get everything together on. They got like 7 down, and most of them, the ones that are down are Dodges. And I just politely said, just don't buy any more Dodges because they're not holding up. And we looked at, sheriff, I'm gonna pull a play out of the sheriff in Johnson County's playbook. He uses, or they use a auction company to auction their cars off instead of going on Gov Deals. So, we called, Dale Dunn at RDD and asked him, and he does it for several people. And I said, "Is there stuff we got to go through?" He said, "All we do is sign a contract." And he said he would suggest that they be auctioned at his place because you got a lot of people coming in. And he said he feels like they would bring more money there than just.
I would agree, Gov Deals is not bringing hardly anything.
And they're expensive.
And the, and that goes for anything else that we've got that we need to auction is I don't know what the, I don't know
Well,
what you.
so
think
you
it
all
is.
have authorized on Gov Deals before, to go through that. All you would need to do is take action to authorize this type of sale. I mean, it's an auction sale. You can hire someone to do it. You just need to take action and then identify the surplus property.
So do we do that as that being our auction company, or do we do it each individual time we have stuff?
I would, each time I would authorize
Okay,
it, so that way you can identify which surplus property.
It's gonna be, I think this next one is June something, which is next week, so there's no way they can get it all together before June, what they said the other day. The next auction would be in August, I think, that he has at his place.
Yeah, I know the Johnson County Sheriff does it periodically. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's quarterly, but every couple of months,
Right.
they get together, equipment to surplus, so.
So while we're on vehicles, done some research on,
Yeah,
Go ahead.
surplus in the cars makes no effect on this budget.
no, I get, I just want to bring that up while I got it, my gray hair gets me to, I forget things sometimes. The cars. So done some research on it. I've got the, paperwork coming about the, going like with Tahoes or trucks, like they did the, F-150s, going with trying the Tahoes or the trucks and seeing how they hold up. And I asked the sheriff if we did that I would want to see them put on patrol and seeing how they're gonna hold up as far as the rest of the other stuff. Florida does that based on my talking with Casey. Florida does that and does and the return on their investment actually costs them less to operate the Chevrolets than it does the Dodges, even though they cost more. And when they get ready to sell them, so it'd be more of a rotation thing to kind of get them and get what you can get out of them when you can get them. But that would be my, proposal on the vehicles. I think we need to. I didn't get the actual end number. I think he said 7. Some of them's got a blown engine, and they're some of the newer ones. But they're out of the warranty part on the Dodges. They've not had as much issues out of the Ford. So I would,
He contacted me, the base price, this is without, upfitting the vehicle for the sheriff of what he does, decals, computer and everything, but the base
53.
vehicle's 53,000.
yeah, and the Chevrolet, the Silverado's 50,000, nine and some change, 51, might as well say, plus the upfit. So I would think we would need to look at the possibility of trying some of those. I'm not saying we need to try 10 or 15 of them up front to make sure, just to make sure they're gonna work. The next thing is, this is, I know this doesn't go with the budget, but I'm gonna throw this out here while I'm thinking about it. The 1/4 cent sales tax. Preliminary figures says it's gonna bring in, 1/4 cent will bring in 3.4 million additional
That's
money. So my proposal would be that we put some of this on the school systems back to try to help get it passed, and we sign an agreement that they would get half. That then they could use it toward their supplements or whatever else in the, cause it's gonna continue to grow. Right now, I think we want like 1.3 million. So that would give them another $400,000 to use that toward that, and then that way we could kind of keep our funding mechanism as we got it, that we took out the 40-42. We could kind of keep it in place because we got some other we've got some other projects coming down the pipeline.
You talking about putting it on this upcoming election that's coming?
We asked Andrew a while ago, and he says he thinks we could do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
I looked at it, I had reached out to the Board of Elections, earlier. Last time it was on, they just need it by candidate filing, which would be in December. So last time that it was on the ballot, the Board of Commissioners voted at the first meeting in December to place it on the ballot. So you have, I would say, until that late to do it, but obviously if you want to do it earlier, I would say sometime late, summer or early fall.
so would we do it in the primary or do it in the general election?
And that one was on the primary.
Yeah, you
That one
definitely
was
go
on
to the
the
primary. Definitely go to the primary. That said, I would hope that we could vote that in as early as October so that we could start campaigning for it. Because on the primary, the vote starts in February, ends March 5th or 6th or something like that. So, I would think that we need to do it like in October.
So, I mean, what do you think with that? As far
Well, I
as-
agree with that. I don't think we'll have any issues with the current school.
Well,
administration.
can I ask this? Are you suggesting that we hold back on the teacher supplements in our budget and target the quarter cent sales tax for the teacher supplement?
I would say yes, and the reason I say yes is if we can get this right here passed, you're talking about, that's gonna give them another $400,000. What would another $400,000 do? I mean,
And not only that, but it's you got a funding from then on.
and sign it, I don't mean this ugly, but sign an agreement that with the school system, through the county commissioners, that it can't be undone from a new board coming, you know what I'm saying? Just,
Right, but see, I wouldn't agree to that because that's a gamble. Right, we've not successfully
Well, life's a
had a
gamble,
quarter cent
yeah.
sales tax passed in the last 3 or 4 times we tried.
I was about to say that.
That's right. I do think the district would be so inclined as they were a couple of years ago. Because remember, a couple of years ago, we went to every municipality with Commissioner Mayo. We did presentations, all kinds of stuff to do our best to try to sell it
So-
and get it passed.
so
So I don't
let's-
think there's any issues with getting support to push it.
so so would we do this then? Would we do, if we could get it passed, how do we actually repay that fund back? Can you put money back in it, or is that after, once you take it out, it's gone?
Back into which fund?
The 40-42 thing where you're talking about getting the 1.3 million from?
Well, no, that's for capital projects. You can't pull the 1.3 out of 4042.
1.3 would come out of your general.
Come out of general.
Okay,
Or
so,
your operating expenses.
okay, so
So would the
we could
quarter cent
repay,
basically supplant it or take over for
we
that
could
if you can
repay, we
get
could
it passed?
repay it back, and then, well, you won't never repay it back like that,
Well,
would you?
or it becomes your funding stream if you can get it passed.
Anyway, that's all.
But looking at it, I see no better way to get the quarter cent sales tax passed than it be designated for teacher supplements. Or supplements in general. It's not only for teachers, but it's also for general staff.
I'm just using that as, I mean, that's a way to try to,
And with
Fix.
that 1.3, we could fund your,
SRO,
do what?
SRO,
What's the cost?
Not only the SROs, but also your vehicle maintenance shop. You could fund that. I mean, I know it sounds like we're kicking it down the road, but the teacher supplements, even though that's a hard request, I just feel like that, that might be one. We tried the schools in general, that did not work. We tried other methods, and it didn't work. We're going to have to come up with a different method of encouraging people to vote for the quarter cent sales tax.
Agreed.
And just to say it's gonna be for schools, I don't think it's gonna get it. I think you're gonna have it designated specifically for a specific purpose at schools. And it aligns kind of with the cost of teacher supplement. Even though I agree it's a gamble. I agree. If we could put it in our budget, undoubtedly it's there.
Right. My thought is,
Teacher supplements is by like sewer. It's always a hot potato. It's a moving target. It's a hard thing to settle.
I think you're on to the right track, Mr. Joe, as far as the quarter cent sales tax, because I could be wrong, and it might bear some research to look at some of the local governments around us that actually were able to get a quarter cent sales tax approved by their voters. I think you might find it might be something a little more specific like that than just for a building or things there.
Well, let's see how they presented it.
how it's presented, just do some research around us, but I wouldn't agree to that in this budget cycle because I would be agreeing to a gamble. I do think it's worth doing it and push for it really hard to try and get it because it can come around and fund those things.
So
And I think we have to be targeted as whenever that's done, is who we're targeting and try and get people out to vote for.
So you said you're satisfied with 1.3 million then, not half of it?
Of the quarter cent sales tax?
Yeah. Are you?
Yeah, I'm not saying that if the quarter cent sales tax were voted upon and approved, then all of it has to go to the schools, because I know the county has other expenses that need to be paid too.
No, that's
Is that
what
what your question is?
I was saying is doing like half of it and projected is 3.4 million, so that'd be 1.7. But what I'm asking, are you basically, what you're saying is you would be satisfied with the 1.3, so basically we would say 1.3 million would go to teacher supplements.
Right, I'm good with that.
You're good with 1.3 million through the sales tax. What if we get it passed, we just basically just fund it $1.3 million, not 1.7.
Right, if we do a sales tax, but not in this budget.
I understand that, but
Right.
after the fact, you're saying,
Because the district doesn't need 1.7 for supplements, that's not what they're asking for. I know what you're saying, but I think 1.3 will cover supplements.
Can I look at it a different way? What if we tie it to school resource officers in regards to the quarter cent sales tax? That a certain amount of that would actually be designated for school resource officers.
we're already paying, how much are we paying already? 1 point something million
Over $1 million.
for school resource officers?
Yes, mm-hmm.
They're already paying over and above, they get 750,000-ish, 740 something,
680 some thousand is a grant,
so 680.
something
So
like
we're,
640,
so we're
680.
pulling out I think it was $1.9 million last year, I thought. With everything
One
total.
point seven, I think, was in the budget, because we get revenue of 700,000 or so from
Well,
the
he's
state.
just saying 680, so that's what, so it's 1.7, so it was,
1.1 is the
Out of-
cost for the SROs before the grant funds. is
so
taken
1
away.
point, so
1.1 before the grant funds?
Yes, sir.
And how much we get in grant funds?
709.
So our net cost is 300 something?
No, that's out of pocket. It's costing us, it's 1.7 million, 1.8.
That's what I understood. I mean, I ain't got it in front of me, but I thought it
You
was.
saying yes or no?
1.1 million is how much it cost. Subtract the 709, so you still have
Oh,
a cost
okay.
of 300,000, roughly.
That don't sound right.
That don't sound right.
I don't
And it
think
pulls
that's,
to school resource officers.
yeah, I
here.
thought we were pulling
We're pulling $1
$1.7
million,
million.
I'm telling you, we're putting $1 million.
I'm almost positive, I mean, I may be wrong, but I was almost, I thought it was 1 point something million dollars that we brought out of.
We're. School resource officers, here we go. Page 81. All right, revenues, we got 709 coming in. So that's, the what now?
Page 81,
That's numbered on the bottom.
Yeah, 81.
1.7. I stand corrected. 1.7.
It's amazing I remember that
Yeah.
from 5 o'clock this morning. So our net cost to the county is,
1.1.
Yeah,
yeah, okay, 1.1. That's what I always.
right, so,
That's the revenue.
So we currently are paying 1.1. I'm saying to make sure we got school resource funding going forward, we designated half of those dollars to go to a school resource officers.
as far as on the school,
Doing it
on the school,
on the quarter cent sales tax.
I've opened up a can of worms already.
That's
It's,
all
they got
wrong
nothing to
with
do,
this
yeah, that ain't got nothing to do
I
with
gotta
the
get back to
budget.
this budget.
Yeah, yeah.
But I do need to know if we're gonna dedicate any to SROs now.
Well, yeah,
I've got a list here we can vote on, we can go back. There's a few creative things that we could do. There's a couple of capital improvement projects in the budget, well, one in the budget. And there's also a fleet maintenance shop that's been talked about today. One option is to pay for those out of fund balance, and then when we go to borrow money for Rosewood Middle School to complete the project, we just tack those on and reimburse ourselves. The problem with that is it takes the WCDA out of the
And you can't do that.
building project. Well, I mean, that's an option that frees that money up in your budget now.
It said again,
We transfer in more fund balance to upfront cash flow, those two CIP projects. And we would borrow that money on a financing deal when we close Rosewood Middle School to reimburse our project line item and put that money back in fund balance.
And Rosewood Elementary, if you were gonna move forward with
Yeah,
those classrooms.
and the rest
as
of it
well.
would be Rosewood
So
Middle.
you'd be looking at 4 finance projects.
so
So what all four of them? What all four of the projects?
What are the 4? Rosewood Middle School, Rosewood Elementary.
The garage, fleet maintenance shop and
maintenance.
and the T hangers. That's just an idea.
The problem with the T-hangers is that you're gonna take that cost of $950,000 and it'll be $1.5 million if we go through, county acquisition. And that's the whole reason to run it through WCDA, was the cost savings.
I agree. I'm just throwing the option out there.
so
What is the limit on? Well, it definitely would have to go through purchasing, if it's $1 million purchase, right?
Have to be formula bid.
What is considered small cap projects for the county?
Angie would have to.
Do you remember what's below the formal bid threshold now?
90.
Is it 90?
90,000?
golly, that's low.
I couldn't remember if it was 90 or 100, but yeah, 90.
Also, Commissioner Gurley, back to your sheriff's, currently, you were talking about the cars for the sheriff. There is no money in the sheriff's budget currently for any cars.
So we need to take and look at,
Just,
how many
Then you
cars
discuss-
how many cars they usually get?
I have no idea.
I mean, when they purchase them, is it like 12 or, I mean, like, there was a figure there at one time, because I know the cost has escalated up, so I think it said 12 at one time, then it went to 10 because of cost escalation.
I'm not sure. The cost of the vehicles, the prices keep going up.
Yeah.
No, there's no money in that because we fronted the sheriff
Correct.
2 years' worth of vehicles.
Just reminding him because he brought cars up, yep. And purchase of Tahoes.
But he made the decision to go ahead and put those into service. We did not purchase them for that purpose. They were supposed to be the annual rotations. We just went ahead and pre-purchased them. Am I correct? So they were there, and rather than going through the cycle that it should have gone, they would just put it in service. And that, I mean, that just, that's wrong. That's just wrong.
Request this year went from 10 to 15.
Do what now?
His request was 10 to 15, but his original request was how much dollars?
800, this year,
Yeah.
$878,000 for 15 vehicles. He increased it from 10 to 15.
Was there any special use vehicle? That may sound like did he need a inmate van or anything other than a cruiser
For the sheriff, or for the
for the detention center or anything like that?
We gave them a van last year. They did ask for one this year, but we pushed it next year because they did get a new one this current year.
Thank you.
All right, back to the school resource officers. Are we going to go ahead and put $500,000 in there and have the school system
Try to find it.
pay the difference after discussion with the city in regards to them picking up additional resource officers?
Fine with that.
Fine with that.
Are you
I mean, is
okay
that
with
gonna
that?
be-
Yeah, I'm
Is
okay.
I got a,
Is that gonna put, that, but that would, the half a
That should
million
fund them all.
should put everybody in, all the county school, all the schools that would reside inside the county will have a
Right.
resource officer, and the city would be,
So that's adding a half a million.
Okay.
Now, Chip, you're gonna have to work with the sheriff to find out where in the world he's funding these part-timers.
They're being
And-
funded, I've got response back, they're being funded out of the sheriff's budget,
Out of what?
the sheriff's budget. His part-time line item,
Well, then we need to recapture that.
we will, we'll make sure we
So,
start splitting that.
so the net cost to us
Can show.
can show. So it's not
Exactly.
gonna be half a million to us. We need to know what that figure is for the funding that we recapture to apply toward the half a million. Okay.
So it won't come out of his budget, it'll be a different line item.
Yes, it should be coming out of SRO part-time line item.
Well, we're talking about the sheriff. The sheriff also requested a salary increase. Would y'all want to detail that about what his request was? Even though his adjustment was last year, chairwoman requested to, had made a comment. Would you like
But
to?
from what I saw, that was held back to 5% increase. Is that correct?
2%.
So currently in the budget, there's a 2% increase across the board for all sheriff employees and detention. This is called Plan A, and it started in January of 2024. Last year was the first year, second year. This
Will it
is,
start in July this time?
well, it's in the budget beginning January of 26.
we need to move that to July,
Yeah.
and that's $150,000. $150,000.
Saying move it forward to July?
Move it.
he said move it up. What's that for again? I only heard part of that conversation, I'm sorry.
That's part of their pay plan.
Part of their pay plan.
It was adopted last year.
That was supposed to go into effect in January of 26. And we're
Well,
going,
it partially went into effect last year, January 26th, and the second half is January. The next adjustment is January, so you're moving it forward 6 months.
But January is when it increased annually.
It did last year.
Right.
Now, the request from Commissioner Gurley is that it be moved up to
July.
July 1.
Then it'd run to
well, you just
Cycle.
increased your budget by how much?
150,000.
150,000.
Starting to add up.
Why was it done in January, if you don't mind me asking?
Savings,
Savings.
all savings. Reduce the budget. He had also requested additional pay, an increase in the percentage
He did.
that we had originally denied.
I've talked to him about the 2% thing, so
Okay.
I think they'll
I'm
be,
just bringing it up because the chairwoman
oh,
made a
sorry.
comment,
Oh.
and I wanted to make sure her comment was addressed, her concern was
Oh,
addressed.
gosh. Oh.
Commissioner Gurley, you got anything else?
I got plenty, but go ahead, I'll shut up for a little bit. I'm waiting for some answers on some stuff.
All right.
You got anything, Commissioner
I
Dodd?
do.
Okay, go ahead.
First question I've got is under revenue, the general revenue for rental.
What
We
page
did
you
not
on?
accommodate, let's see here. Hold on a minute, I can't go by book right now. This would be on, help me out here. I'm trying to find where your rental revenue would be. General revenues. Here it is, it's on page 31. Page 31. And this would be under 38,400. 3,400. Rental income. We're showing $34,000 in the budget. and we need to add the rental income for, to what now?
Trying to get it on the right.
Okay. I'll let everybody get there.
You're on page 31?
Page 31 under revenues.
Yeah, count 38, 3,400.
We need to go ahead and put the revenue in there for Dixie Trail. The 34 here was farm rental income, if I'm correct.
You're correct. So we'll be increasing our revenue by 240,000.
Second one is on the ABC distribution, which is 3,700 ABC profits. Why did we drop that from 460 to 233?
It was incorrectly budgeted this year. It is only a biannual distribution.
Yeah, but he gave us 2 checks.
Right, but we budgeted for it as quarterly payments in the current budget. So this, what is showing here is the correct amount.
That we got last time?
We
I
only
thought he
did,
gave us 2 checks for 200,000.
There were 100 and something, I think.
They were 100 something? I didn't receive them, so.
it was
y'all-
budgeted in air quarterly in the current budget we're operating under now.
So all we're getting is the 233.
Right.
All right, good enough. You're gonna have to help me on this, help me find,
So let me ask you something, is that gonna maintain since they're building the building out at Rosewood and building the distribution warehouse, is that gonna maintain that,
they generally always give us somewhere in that
even
neighborhood.
though they're having to pay for
And
buildings?
they're paying for their building in their
I
budget.
just-
The capital is outside of that.
Oh, is it? So we
So
don't
all,
have anything to
everything
do
that
with
they
it?
give you is based off sales.
Okay,
It's independent of their capital project,
okay.
because they have a capital fund.
The next question I had was in finance, and I haven't pulled that up here, but what page it is. But service charges went to $62,000. What's that?
Service charges are, we had an increase in the amount that we pay First Citizens for our safekeeping services. So we are trading, or not trading, I'm purchasing a whole lot more commercial paper, and so by doing that, our costs have increased.
But didn't you just renegotiate that?
I did.
And is it less than 62?
It is maybe 1,000,
Oh,
so.
well, you need to do a better negotiation. All right. Under human resources, I want to make sure that we're getting credit for all of the DSS charges that are there. I think I asked Andrew, or you, Angie, in regards to the new attorney that we have, that's a DSS attorney. Is all that going actually through DSS so that we're reimbursed?
Yeah, she's part of the DSS budget. All of her staff is.
All of her
and-
staff is?
Yep. She's not in my department. We purposely kept her in DSS so that we could get
Well,
that reimbursement.
in going to human resources, we absorbed all of the human resources from DSS into our human resources department. Do you have any of your personnel that are designated DSS? We need to do that. Because if you designate them as DSS, human resources, then we're reimbursed at a rate of 50 to 60%. Am I correct?
I apologize. There is somebody who is designated for that department, not in their title.
Oh, I can hear you.
I know, but everybody else.
Oh, okay.
So we do have an employee who is designated DSS. It's just not, it's not in their title. But yes, we do have an employee whose only job is to support DSS functions.
That's right, they do the job.
Yes,
My question
they are allocated
is,
through DSS.
do what now?
Their funding is allocated through DSS.
So it is through DSS,
Yes.
so we are reimbursed.
Yes,
And that is the only person in human resources?
yes.
Okay. Now help me find this, Angie. I'm sorry, I went online on my laptop and did all of this work, made all the notes and such, and when I ended up, actually it was online, when I closed it up, I realized that all of my notes went away whenever I closed it out. So help me find the tax commission from municipalities. We evidently, under tax, we do all the billing. We do all of the work for all of the municipalities in billing their taxes. And if I recall, it was such a ridiculously low amount that we were charging municipalities for this service. Andrew, is it designated by law how much we charge?
No, but it's based off an old agreement with the.
Well, this
municipality.
agreement may be 30 years old. We need to renegotiate our agreements because our cost has gone up exponentially during this period of time. We don't even know when these agreements were made. So I would ask that we pull the agreements, see what it is, and apply this rate of inflation from that date to the now date, and that should be the new rate for reimbursement.
I will say, looking at other counties' rates, we are smack dab in the middle.
I don't care how anybody else is. It's just not right that this county has got to spend all the money,
Okay.
have all the personnel, all the equipment, do all of the appraisal, do all the work, and send a bill out, and then they reap the benefit from it, and then we're stuck with the bill and the cost of producing. So I would ask that we look at that. What are you laughing at?
That's kind of the job of county government.
Do I now?
That's kind of the job of county government.
Well, yeah.
I do think that it has come up in the past, and
Yeah.
it's usually come up too late for us to do something about it in this budget. But that said, that we can certainly take a look at it and make it a priority.
I appreciate it. All right, now,
Good question.
Bevan's got a question.
Excuse my voice, but isn't that the same thing the school system asked us to do? With that $2 million that we give them to look at it because of how long ago it was versus now?
Yeah,
And
one of your
inflation.
proposals is to increase that funding to 2.5 million. That was discussed.
With inflation, is that correct number though? With everything, how expensive everything is now, just to repair something is 3 times more than what it used to be 10 years ago.
Well, there was a proposal to move it from 2 to 2.5. But this is what he's just talking about is the amount we charge municipalities.
I understand that, but I'm just saying it's still the same concept.
Yeah.
though.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're gonna
Okay.
say this one place, that's applied to everything across the board.
Right? Agreed.
and then the county attorney. What page is he on?
46.
46? In looking at the revenues on the county attorney, I didn't see where we have the foreclosure fees. Where would that be?
It's under staff attorney fees.
Under staff attorney fees?
That's what it was. I don't know if it has.
But should that be more than $60,000?
Well, we only recapture that fee when we actually file and have a pending action. A lot of the ones that are referred to us, we work out payment plans and we can't collect that legally prior to filing. So we still collect the taxes, we just don't collect the actual fee itself.
So fees, where we've got this,
$60,000 is not the amount of taxes that my office collects for the county.
do what now?
$60,000 is not the amount of taxes that my office collects.
I understand. My understanding though, and I'm gonna go back 5-6 years, where we had a private company, attorneys that were doing this work. And they charged, my understanding was, if they file, they charged,
As do we.
as do we. And those amounts were much higher than 60,000.
It's $1,000 a case.
I just want to make sure that we are reflecting the charges in our budget realistically to what we would be getting on foreclosure fees. And you're saying 60 is it?
I mean, that's what we usually project. Sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's less. There's also commission fees that we pull as well. So I think all told, you know, that's probably.
And that is included in the staff attorney?
That's a separate line item,
All right.
but it's usually, those two combined anywhere from $80,000 to $90,000 a year estimated.
And the 200,000 for,
Clerk surplus.
yes,
I was gonna
What
ask
was
too.
So surplus, so I collect taxes two ways. So out of a sale, that's when the money hits my budget, and that's when it goes through these line items. If someone pays it off beforehand, they pay directly to the tax office plus all our fees that have been put in there. So all that would hit the tax office budget. When I go to sell and say, for example, we sell a property to open and bid, including all my fees, the taxes owed is maybe $20,000. If that property sells for $100,000, that's $80,000, but we can't keep that. We can only sell it for the amount owed. That's surplus. That gets turned over to the clerk of court, and either the property owner themselves or the lien holder can petition to get that money back. They're entitled to those fees. We can't collect more than what's actually owed on the property.
okay, yeah, absolutely, that makes sense. All right, and here again, under the Board of Elections, we evidently have an agreement with the municipalities and the sanitary districts in regards to what we charge for our services at the Board of Elections. So the Board of Elections, as an example, has a budget cost of $970, almost $1 million, and we don't have any county on the ballot this time. So it's only it's only municipalities or water districts, and the most that we're gonna return for that is $47,000.
Well, no, you've got in 25, 26, you've got a primary. You got a midterm primary next spring.
Okay.
So that includes, you know, next spring's election. And I do believe they also budget in case there needs to be a runoff in that primary as well. which
Well,
would
my
occur in
question
May.
is-
That's
how-
another thing though, the runoffs, I mean, it basically costs you the same amount within little percentage wise to run the whole thing all over again.
But to answer your question, anything that's municipality specific, anything that's, water district specific, we don't pay those costs, that gets invoiced completely to those entities.
Even
So-
on another election, a runoff, it's the same thing?
If it's just a city election, yes, they have to pay for that. They pay, Annie sends them an invoice.
So it is for the full coverage or the first full cost? Well, what's included in the cost?
Well, say for example, the city election, I mean, that was the only,
They've always paid.
yeah, they just invoice the city for those costs. That's, I mean, cost to print ballots, that's cost for workers, that's all the costs associated with those elections. I don't know how that would work with the primary, I'd have to get more information on that. The primary, I'm not 100% about. I think that's prorated. We might have to eat the cost of, for example, the congressional primaries, but I don't know that for
I just
sure.
see that a little bit one-sided. The county pays $1 million and we invoice them back out
Well,
$47,000.
that's probably for the primary, because we eat those costs. Whereas the water districts, and the sanitary districts, they pay for their own races themselves.
A little lopsided. Detention center, we show wages increase 11.5%. I thought everybody was getting a 2%.
Is that the part-time?
It's page 75.
Page 75? Thank you.
That was one of my questions too.
So page 75, very top line, 21,100, salary and wages increases 11.5%. Why? Because we're actually cutting positions,
We
remember?
actually have a couple of, individuals that are potentially retiring, so we have included those vacation payouts.
But we're cutting positions by 12. The sheriff himself came here and said he recommended
But
12.
that is not reflected yet.
That's what?
That is not reflected. This is the proposed.
That's not
budget.
reflected.
Correct.
What adjustment would it make if we use his number of 12?
So is that, he said he needed 12?
No, he was saying that,
He said he needed 12.
He needed
He didn't
12.
say he was cutting 12, he needed
He
12.
needed 12,
all
yeah.
right, let me.
Because he was 16.
That's right.
They had recommended 16, and he said, I recommended 12.
No, they recommended
8,
8.
yeah,
Then it was 16, but he said he needed 12.
that's right. And he said something
Jeff,
about.
help me out here.
That's good. There you
This
go.
last discussion we just had last Tuesday.
I think this
The
budget,
the architect came in and said you can cut 16 positions if you build a new jail. Because you're gonna move from a multi-level to a single level. And the sheriff said, I never agreed to that. I only said we could only cut 12.
that's what he said.
That's what he said.
Now, he said he needed 12.
But he said he
12.
needed 12. We're not talking about that. That was way in the past. We're talking about right now.
He said the other day that
He
he
still,
needed,
wait a minute.
I thought it was 8, 16 and 8.
It did the 12. That's exactly what I said.
exactly, yeah.
He said he needed 12 to be able to continue to do the cleanup.
He granted it back to 8.
He did,
That
but
means putting 4 back to make 12. I think this budget is reflective of
So he's
8.
not cutting 12.
This budget is reflective of 8.
Correct.
And so.
so we need to take 4 away.
No, you would be adding.
Added
4.
for,
Adding,
How would you add 4 more? I mean,
That's gonna make.
Because
it
you
12.
already granted him 8 back.
that would be
Now,
12.
if you were gonna, if, I think that's I don't think he understood what you're asking to take 4 more of his 8
Absolutely.
requests away.
absolutely, because we use the reduction in staffing to pay for the
Agreed.
jail. And the number was 16. So this year, right now, according to this, the actual for 2024 was $4,135,000 to operate that jail currently on multi-floor and the windows. It was $4 million. Now he's wanting to reduce, moving into the new jail, you're gonna reduce staffing by some number, but yet he's increased it to 4,400,000, he's increased it by 11%. He hasn't decreased it. We haven't saved anything. We actually increased.
Well,
Well, is this gonna be considered a temporary, until we get in the jail, he needs these
I
individuals?
think that's
And
what we
was-
had to talk about at the last meeting,
Right.
didn't we? Because I got an X beside, when we talked about it, was a recapture of 4 of the 8 detention offers that were granted to him 2 months ago. Is what it says here, which is exactly what you're bringing up. But it also, I think we remembered that we talked about we would wait till we moved into new jail. There was some discussion of that, because I put X beside it, meaning that it didn't seem to be flying, or it shouldn't be included here. And now,
But that-
if that's what you want,
Yeah,
you
that
need to make it
day-
clear to us.
That day, he said that he needed 12.
To
Because-
operate.
He needed 12 instead of the 8.
And what he was
Whatever.
asking was for 4 more to be added, and you're asking for 4 to be cut.
And
So
this
they-
budget currently has how many in it?
8
8.
cut. Correct.
You got 8 in there and
Which
8,
originally it was 16,
16, yeah.
which
8
8 was
cut.
granted back 2 months ago. And if you're gonna get to the 12 number,
Then you would
that
add,
means he was asking for you to add 4, not cut 4.
That's correct. That's what, because he made a comment about he can't operate it because he could cut out the trash deal. Because it takes 3 or 4, and you said, no, we can't do that, so.
I'm just saying, guys, we were sold, on the idea that the cost of financing a new jail, we could reduce the cost of labor to operate it. And this budget actually increases cost to operate it.
No, it cuts exactly what was, it cuts the 8 remaining of the original 16 that was to be cut. You granted 8 back 2 months ago to them. That's the board action, not the county's action.
But is it really necessary to have these guys cleaning out here?
Yes.
Cause I mean, I don't see a lot of, maybe I don't look for them, maybe I'm too busy, but, you know, I haven't really seen a lot of.
They're up and down the road a lot. Of course, I'm out and about a lot, so I see them.
We will do whatever you all come to
At
an
some
agreement on.
point, there has got to be a limit. It's just not unlimited. And I'm just floored to see that the cost of operating a new jail, where you're moving from what, 5 floors to actually all on 1 floor, where you've got the new concept of overseeing 2 pods, and all of a sudden it's costing us more to operate. Well, the only way you could do that is you've got more personnel.
So how many people does he have in the jail now?
96.
96 in the jail. How many has he got warm bodies of the 96?
Actual field positions.
Yeah.
He's not gonna be full.
Give me
Not
just-
Sure,
Give me,
something they're leaving.
Do what?
give me
I
just a
said there's been
quick,
several leaving.
Yeah.
This one takes us down to 88. 88 is what this budget
Correct.
does.
with a, currently, as it's shown, 88 with a 2% at January. So we've talked about going back to July,
Which is the $150,000.
but that includes sheriff, that's sheriff and detention together.
Right.
And then you have an increase in that line item as well, Ms. Angie, because you said you're anticipating some retirements.
Yes, sir.
So on the 80, I mean, but how many people has he actually got filled of that 80, of that 96?
Working on that for you right now.
So basically what he wants is he wants 92, what you're saying.
Evidently.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
So now we only have 4 positions out of the 16 we were promised to reduce, only reducing it by 4. I mean, that is ludicrous. That is ludicrous.
Was it 16 or 8 that we were supposed to be reducing to?
16 is what it's supposed
It was originally sold as 16.
Okay.
from
That was originally the proposal. It was cut, and 2 months ago, he came back before you and asked for 8 back, which you agreed to. Now, when we brought him in here the other day, he was asking for 4 more, not 4 less. He said he never agreed to the 16. He only agreed to 12.
Which doesn't make sense, because he agreed to 12,
So you'd be cutting.
a reduction of 12, not adding 12, but a reduction of 12.
We cut it.
And now he's come back and said, we gave him 8 back, and now he wants 4 more. So the 12 that he said that he could cut, I mean, seriously, we can't cut them anymore.
You can leave it at 8, or you can reduce it by 4,
5 what?
Vacancies.
or you can add to it.
What's
got
the
5
cost
vacancies.
on that per year? Those 20.
That's all?
So he has 5 vacancies currently, but based on what he said in front of us, he has several that are out due to various
Got
reasons.
FMLA and different things.
But 5 true vacancies.
What's the, can you
Hey, Ray,
tell me the
we
cost?
got a problem
of
with
those?
that.
Commissioner Foster was asking the cost of what a position may be.
Yes, the 12.
The 12.
You have it. And so if we having the 12 or not having them, I want to see what the cost difference is.
I'm gonna figure that based on the base pay,
Okay.
and the base pay, and that's,
About
this
600,000.
is no fringes, so, 433,000.
Okay.
Which basically pays for our school resource officer. almost.
And we said too, didn't we?
551 with fringes
551.
on an entry-level
No,
officer.
551?
Yes, sir.
On how many positions?
12.
On the 12.
And we're not capturing any lapse salary because of the overtime pay
Correct.
from the vacant positions. We're not capturing anything back.
Well, it's been used because when we only budgeted in the current fiscal year for half a year
And
at 88.
choking up here.
Now I'm getting all mixed up with the number. 80. We were told that they could operate on 80. We budgeted for 96 for half a year, 80 the rest. So those lap salaries are none.
So the 551 you says for 12, is that for 4 or for 12?
12.
So 12 people, so really we need to talk about 4.
Right, that would be 150,000 divided by 12 equals times 4, 145,000.
So we're talking 145 additional thousand, yeah,
That has to be
145,000.
added.
If you go back with 4 and not
If you
8.
give them back to his 12 number.
That figure right there
We
is
already gave them that.
All right, whatever. I mean, you can't fill the positions anyway, but I'm just saying it's irritating to me to make decisions based upon promises, and then all of a sudden we come down to it, and basically there's no positions lost. It actually costing you more to operate the jail.
Well, that was the architect, that was. the
No. The
Yes.
sheriff said last Tuesday, he said out of his mouth right there that he agreed to 12. He agreed to 12 today, he agreed to 12 then. But he didn't stand up and say it. He didn't get up and tell us that. He didn't contradict what the 16 that was presented to us.
From the architect.
Well,
The architect is the one that presented it.
the sheriff was sitting right there with the architect standing there. All he had to do is get up and say, I disagree, it should be 12. That's all he had to do.
Can I make a suggestion? Go ahead. My suggestion would be to leave the budget as is, and if he needs it, have him come back to us to ask
I
for
like
it.
that idea.
Because if you give it to someone, then they have no
I like
reason to
that
come
idea.
back and just say or justify why I
Just
need
leave it as it is.
Leave it at, yeah, don't add any. I mean.
I'm not adding anything. I'm trying to take away.
Oh, I get it.
I'm trying to take away.
But leave it as is, let them get in, and then if the sheriff has justification that he needs it, then he can come back and share that justification with us as commissioners.
Well, it looks like the budget does what he was requested anyway at 4.4.
He's short for, he's 4 detention positions short of what he said he wanted.
But if it ain't but 145,000,
That's my point. It's 145,000. It's not.
He went up $330,000. 330, so it's more than one. But we'll move on.
Okay, Madam Chair,
Is the overtime the reason
You
why
got-
we're short?
No, I got
I'm sorry.
just a little bit.
you got a little bit more.
Yeah. All right, there was a telecom reimbursement of $13,255. The number here is 54/2018. Can y'all help me find that? I'm sorry about that, my notes that I had evaporated.
Telecom's on 84.
Telecom,
That's page 84.
Reimbursement.
84.
what would that be under?
It says tele, 911.
54/2018 was the code number I put down. Would that be under emergency
You
management?
got 911 telecom, Commissioner Daughtry, is that what you're looking for?
I don't know, I didn't put
There's one on
down,
84, page 84.
I didn't put the account number down. You saw on 84? "911 telecom." But I don't see reimbursement here. It's 13,250, oh, it is too. Municipal reimbursement, that's what it was. What is municipal reimbursement on 911 telecom?
That's where we request reimbursement from the city of Goldsboro for CAD.
For CAD?
Computer-aided dispatch.
And our CAD cost is,
That's just the portion that applies to city hall.
how do what now?
That's Goldsboro's portion.
How did y'all determine that portion? I just want to make sure that we get reimbursed accordingly to what we should be percentage-wise. And 13,000, I want to say that CAD cost us $1 million. So y'all are comfortable with the 13,255? All right, under transportation, there was a 144K. Transportation.
That's on
Barbara,
page
you-
103.
Now, you really moved fast on this.
Well, I've been looking at it.
103,
Transportation.
Station.
Appropriations.
Oh, it's down at the bottom, I'm sorry. It's an appropriation, county appropriation of 144,000.
It's your rural route, isn't it?
That would be on page 104.
That is for Gateway.
Yeah, that's our match. We have to go.
Certainly, we're not contributing $144,000 to Gateway.
This is our match for the admin, their capital, and then also for Highway 70 corridor,
How much Highway 70 corridor?
25.
But that took a tremendous jump there. I mean,
We didn't have it last year. I don't think the Highway
It's a
70
match on,
hasn't,
purchasing a bus, isn't it?
Right.
and Highway 70 hasn't built in the last several years, I don't think.
That's right.
Highway 70 has not built. So we're catching up on some
So
progress.
they didn't build just because they didn't need the money for anything. That's just a,
Yeah.
When I was on Gateway, we had that worked out to where basically the county was not having to put hardly anything in it because it was self-sustaining. I don't know how we got to the point that now it's $144,000 that the county.
Match for new. My knowledge was a percentage match for new bus. But I may be wrong. Is
No,
that
that's
correct?
right. That is correct.
And that's the case always? That has been the case in the past?
For capital.
Yeah.
So Mount Olive,
They don't buy a bus every year, but
they help pay for this, Mount Olive? This part?
I don't think these buses run to Mount Olive.
They don't pay for the capital. They provide, Mount Olive provides some operational monies
Yeah, I
to
would know
GWT.
they go in there, and they
As
also
do-
go to
as do-
Fremont too, and Pikeville.
Yeah, as does the county and as does the city, yep.
If you go back and double check on that, please. Planning at 175,000. Planning.
Page 109.
109. Madam Chair is on it today.
$175,000. Where's that amount there?
I don't see that on
Planning
page.
GIS or
That's planning GIS. Planning,
175. Are you looking at revenues, Mr. Joe?
not sure.
Page 106, there's a 175,556.
Yep, it's 170, where do you see that?
Page 106 for municipal reimbursement.
106. Oh, okay. So it's revenues, reimbursement, municipal reimbursement, 175. Looks like we are finally charging municipalities something. What would that be?
Okay.
38, 39, 30.
This is where we are billing our restricted 911 funds for part of three employees' salaries. So we have 3 employees that do work.
So part of those employees do work for 911, and we're billing 911 for those
So
salaries.
we can get reimbursed from restricted.
What about the zone fees, $1,000, Angie, that,
Those are rezonings, which you
Yeah.
cannot, you can't.
And then a question that I had under economic development, how much have we accumulated? When we joined the EDR, we agreed to set aside the balance after we paid for our fees and our salaries. The balance would be accumulated for product, future product. How much have we accumulated in that fund, or are we separating that?
Bear with me one moment.
500,000 right now. On page
And the reason I'm
110.
asking that is because we're shortly gonna have to be faced with 2 more shell buildings. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Did we just put that into
You should have a number.
reserves, or did we set it aside on the line item?
Now, we're on the sale of those 2 buildings, there'll be an influx of money in this piece, correct?
After we recoup our funds and WCDA recoups theirs, yes.
Right.
But that's a small portion of the sales price.
What do you mean a small portion?
I mean, we're selling it for
Five
$5 million, and
And
I think reimbursement, I don't have it in front of me, but it was only a couple of $1 million. I think about half of that might be reimbursement at this point. I can't remember the fees that it costs us to build those 2 buildings. I'd have to look that up.
yeah, I wanna say we've got over 3-4 million in those 2 buildings.
I think it's about, it might be a little over half of it, yeah. So my point being, you'll have maybe
We should
1.5
have,
to
we
2
should
million.
have some profit. And then we've got to recapture the 2.4 million that we gave an incentive on the front end. We got to recapture that before the city participates. Did you find that?
No, I don't want to answer you wrong, so can we table that one for
Yes,
research?
table it. That'll be fine. I hate to bring this one up. On the Jetport, why is that an indirect cost of $177,000? Jetport.
Page is that?
I'm waiting on the chair lady. She just turns right to that. Library Building
It's on
Services.
page
261.
261.
Wow, I really skipped, didn't I? I'm getting to the end. I apologize. 261.
All right, to the back.
That must be a blue tab.
Go up, it's got the UTV and the T-hanger construction. If you're looking, it's revenue
that just
is
seems like it-
261.
do what now?
261 for revenues. Jetport.
I'll keep on scrolling. It just seems like an awful amount that, for indirect cost to the Jetport.
So
And
what,
and when you look at indirect cost on these other departments, it's nowhere near that.
263.
Do what now?
Has that got something to do with all the, construction as far as the,
No,
they ain't got nothing to do with it?
no, no.
what indirect cost is a way to capture all the costs from your central services departments. The cost that, finance puts into the Jetport, facilities, IT, all your central services, county manager, commissioners, it's the call, it's a plan that is put together. So
I got
So
it.
you can have a true cost of what it takes to run the Jetport. And we do it for Maxwell Center, and we do it for sewer.
And it's enterprise fund, you have to do that.
I understand that, and I've got that explanation every year.
But it's
But my
relative
point
to
is, the
salaries.
177 is too high based upon that little Jetport, is my argument. I don't know who came up with the formulas,
If
but
the, If the salaries go up, that goes up. If cost of supplies go up, it's relative to cost of living and
Everybody's just, huh?
mowing
Cutting all that
grass.
grass.
Your
Yeah,
equipment,
exactly.
there's a part of your equipment cost that gets allocated.
All right, well, every year y'all just, it seems like an awful lot there. That's all I had, thank you.
Okay, Madam Chair?
Yes.
This question is, first off, in regard to community development. Can someone elaborate a little bit about the funding?
What page you
It is 113.
That's outside agency funding. Chamber of Commerce, WCDA campaign, Firemen's Association, Gateway, Highway 70 corridor, Friends of Seymour, Wayne Uplift, Nutrition for the Elderly, Watch, Wages, Communities and Schools, Literacy Connections, Special Olympics, the Old Waynesboro Commission, Goldsboro Bridge Battlefield, Wayne County Museum and Arts Council of Wayne County, and WISH.
Okay, so what I would like to see in this particular line item, I know we've been talking about the digital library forever, for Dudley. Can we appropriate some funding for that so we can try to get that project started?
Be up to, this board is, if they want to make that motion and get approval for it, I mean, and set a dollar amount.
I mean, we've been sitting on this,
That
item
would
that
be
we
under the
approved.
library, but it wouldn't be under community development, but it would be a library item.
That's not a capital thing, is it? Either
It would be a capital project.
capital project?
What's the cost of the project?
We don't have a defined scope of project currently.
Well, with me discussing it with our county manager, there's two things that could happen. We could possibly find a used building, or we could build a library. It's been kind of challenging finding a used space. That particular area is a great area to have a digital library. It's gonna be cost effective, it's gonna save a lot of dollars where you're not gonna be investing in books. And Dudley is growing as we know now, so I think it's the perfect time to try to move forward with this. I would say even if we allocated $500,000, we wouldn't have to spend it, but $500,000 to see if we can, you know, get some land and possibly, even if we had a modular building, you know, it would do something for that community.
We have actively sought out grant funding the last 2 years, but have been unsuccessful in winning anything so far. Not that we would stop seeking out grant funding, but we've applied a couple times and we're not recipients.
Here's the issue. We're spending right now $3 million a year for library services. And we've spaced these libraries out in the northern end, in Goldsboro, and in Dudley. Not Dudley, but in Mount Olive.
Yes, sir.
But Dudley is serviced by Mount Olive. You're looking at a 5-mile trip.
That's a long way for people in that community who
But
don't
do we
have
put one in
access to it.
Grantham? Do we put one in Grantham? Do we put one in Rosewood?
There was one in Seven Springs and it flooded and they moved it up to the top of the hill, but we've never went back and put it in Seven Springs.
Well, I'm just saying that there's, the county the size of Wayne County to spending $3 million for a library, or a library system, I think is more than adequate. And if we in fact put a library service in Dudley, then I guarantee you, we're gonna have to spend the same amount of money over in Grantham, I guarantee you.
Well, I think that we should worry about that after the fact, because with all due respect, you voted to support it, as well as the other commissioners, sir. And, I would hope that it wasn't just something to.
But I had no idea we were talking about $500,000.
Well, I'm not saying it's gonna be $500,000, but we start with a number, because if we could find a space that's under that, then that's fine. But, I'm not saying let's go with the maximum, but we need to have something where our manager could say, hey.
Tim's got
I have a suggestion. In some counties, the school has served as a resource for public library type resources, right? Because obviously the school has a large book collection, has infrastructure, computers, those things. Johnston's an example I know of, because in Princeton, the high school actually serves as the public library. So is there some way, Dudley or other areas that citizens may have a hard time getting transportation to get to a library, that we could partner some way with the school district, because the resources are there, they've been purchased, and maybe we help supplement those in some way, and you
Well,
don't
that
have a
solves
building
my
there.
problem in regards to having some type of library services in Grantham and Rosewood as well as Dudley. So that may be an option.
That's just throwing out an idea, because, we've got Brogdon Primary, we've got Brogdon Middle School, and I'm not saying that there's not.
And they're already staffed.
Potentially, I'm not saying there's not going to potentially be a cost, if you have to have the facility open on Saturday or a weekend, but, there are also public resources too, right? Because those resources are purchased with public dollars. That's just a suggestion.
Well, when I think about the school system, and I think about the individuals that would have access to a digital library, they more than likely wouldn't be someone that would want to go to school after being in school. They want to go somewhere that they can say, hey, I'm in a different place, I'm in a different world, and it's just separate from the school system, even though it helps educate. And that's what we need more than anything in that district, something that's going to help educate these young people. I gave a presentation pertaining to it. I wish you could have saw it. I can get it for you. But at this point, I just believe it's going to be something that helps the community, and I won't stop, pushing it, and I just hope this board could, keep their word and support it, even if they won't go with the 500,000. Let's get a separate location, and I appreciate that, though, sir.
I think it's just a good option. Then you have more areas that can be covered by using the school system. I understand what you're wanting, I understand what we somewhat agreed to. But looking at it in hindsight and not knowing what Johnston County is doing, why recreate the wheel when somebody's already doing it successfully and you still get the same result? If I want to go to the library, regardless whether it's at the school or where it is, I want to go to the library. And I'm thankful to have that access, whether it's after school hours or on the weekends. Having that access is a great thing. I don't know how much that's going to cost in the long run, if you have to staff it or whatever you have to do, but that's going to be an issue too. But I just think that it's about having access, period. You know what I'm saying? And not having so much a separate brick and mortar building. It's just having access to the information, having access to books.
I think the challenge is going to be where we no longer have control of our hours. It's going to be the school system, and they may say, hey, we only want to operate till 7 o'clock, or we only want to operate till 5 o'clock. So we're not going to really get the good use out of it. It's going to be more complex, in my opinion. It really is, where we can kind of make a decision. We understand I understand the staffing is not going to be a big expense for this particular location.
I get it, but just one versus, you're talking one location versus maybe getting 5 locations. Going with the school. People, it would be my only argument. What's best for the most amount of people instead of just a certain group of people. That's with everything, regardless, no matter what. We have to look at everybody, not just your district or my district. It's every district and what's gonna be best.
Well, I think that I'm not just looking at my district because I supported the Northern Library. I supported that. I was glad that they were gonna get that library. And I waited patiently, you know, while that was completed, so we could work on the library in Dudley that we had
But just like
already.
you have a Northern Library, you have a Southern Library in Mount Olive. So
But it's too far.
Okay, I can say somebody in my district has 5 miles to drive to get to the library. But that doesn't mean I need a digital library where they're at. Sometimes everything's not gonna be convenient for everybody at a certain cost. I'm for it and I understand it, but at the same time, you gotta look at what's for everybody and what's best for the whole group. It's a lot of stuff that I don't feel in this budget or moving forward is best for everybody. It's certain pockets of group and certain hidden agendas and I want this and I'm trading this for this and behind backdoor meetings and everything else. What is best for the people of this county total is what we need to be focused on and not individual goals or whatever. I get it, but at the end of the day, what's best for everyone? And that proposal, if it's working for Johnston County, a county with way more money than us, growing like crazy, why not take that and at least look at it?
Well, that's if the school board is in support of something like that. We don't know if they are.
They haven't been approached. That's just an idea, because I know if you have a desire to look at serving the citizens in that area, we've got 2 schools that are sitting there that are full of resources that could potentially be a start to see what the use is like, and then if it gives you some data or some way to say, hey, there's really a need here because it's greatly being used. Not saying there's not a cost, right, because someone has to staff it at certain hours and things like that, but that's just a model I've seen in other areas where they have tried to do that to reduce your overhead cost of trying to have separate facilities and things like that.
What kind of computers do they have in these libraries? I mean, do they have a group of computers here that a person could go in
Some
and use?
do, or Chromebooks, laptops, depends on what the purpose would be, if the purpose is to.
Well, this particular library was not only gonna be, it was gonna be STEM programs, you know, workstations where you can do creative things. It was gonna also be computers and computers set up with books that, you know, all digital books. It's a whole different level than what the schools currently have, you know. All right, if I don't have the support, you know, then that's
I
fine.
mean, I support you. I just wanted to see, you know, what can we do to benefit the most kids at the end of the day. I mean, you know, if it's an option, at least let's look at it, but we did agree to it, so it's something that we gotta look at either way of getting it done.
I've even, you know, it's a business owner that's right in Dudley that was willing to give up their property. You know, I don't know if it's adequate or not, but they were willing to give their property up for a digital library. So that's a tremendous savings in itself, you know, so.
Chip, can you look into that? Like,
I've searched and searched and searched properties. If you have a lead, please forward it to me, but I've spent lots of time in looking opportunities and haven't found anything yet.
One of them was a church one, and then
One of them was
That was a long time ago, yeah, it was
and one of them was that, it's like a vitamin shop, a health shop, but someone's occupied that,
that was a good location.
yeah.
I'm still happy to have a conversation with the school district. For what it's worth, I'm still happy to do that. Because conversation doesn't cost us anything.
So can I make this suggestion? And since, you know, $500,000 seems really high, let's say 400,000, put that aside until we figure out what we, you know, if we're gonna even go with this plan.
in my opinion, I think we need to find something first before we even, because you have no idea what kind of money you're talking about one way or the other. And then decide if you find a place, because Chip said he's been looking.
The other thing that's changed since we discussed this, God, it
No. Years.
3 years. But the other thing that's changed is we now have a mobile library that We didn't have that mobile van before.
But the mobile library is not sufficient because, you know, when there's bad weather, a lot of people are not gonna, they want somewhere where they can go sit down, they can be comfortable, you know? They want all those things in place. you know?
And again, that's why they need to go right on down there to Mount Olive.
It's
I mean,
easy if you have access to vehicles. If you're a young person, you may not have access to go that far from Dudley. You know, Dudley's not just a walk in the park to get to Mount Olive. That's the
But we
whole
have
thing.
transportation services. All they gotta do is to call and have Gateway come pick you up and take you to Mount Olive.
That's, you know, some people would take advantage of that, some people wouldn't. You know, if they had a schedule on, you know, a scheduled time that they come through these particular areas on a regular basis, like in most cities, then it probably would work, but it doesn't work that well here, you know?
I understand. I wish we could provide all the services but there's gotta be some.
Well, we can move on from now. We can move on. My other thing was, Madam Chair, I know that, initially, the DSS was, asking for an interpreter. Do we know how much that salary was gonna be for that particular interpreter?
60, between 60 and 70, I think.
I think they can get this total benefit package and all.
60,000? So,
I think that's right, she's looking, that's
okay.
65,
65,000 for one person as an interpreter?
yes,
But
sir.
that's in the Creole, that's in the Haitian stuff, there's like
French,
6 or 7,
Creole,
8 dialects of that.
Spanish. Well, I mean, and you, if you think about it, we could cut some other things. I see 2 lawnmowers in facility, and you know, we could give 1 lawnmower this year, and we can go some other places to create that salary. Well, everybody shouldn't get everything on their wish list.
Well, I don't think they have, I think it's been cut
I
mighty
see-
hard.
I see.
Yeah, I can't forget, I can't substitute lawnmowers, but as much grass as we could.
One thing it is, I know it is a problem, the language barrier, you know what I'm saying? And I don't know, I mean, what do we do about it? Because now you have, I mean, in the last 6 to 12 months, the Haitian population has moved to Goldsboro so heavy now that it's ridiculous. Like, and they're buying houses like crazy. Like, and the ones that aren't buying, someone's coming in. I know a guy bought all like 8 apartments, and everybody living in his apartments are Haitian. 2 houses across the street from my mom for sale, both of them bought by Haitians. Like, the population is increasing tremendously.
And won't we recoup some of that cost through DSS and health and all
Yeah.
too?
Yes,
On like a 60-ish% round figures,
50 to 60, yes, sir.
so we're gonna recoup
Half of it at least.
32 to 40,000. I mean, I think it's I mentioned that at the last meeting. I mean, the interpreter, I think, is something that, of course, the problem is finding somebody. That's probably gonna be the issue. Is finding somebody that can speak all of the above.
Well, I think overall that this individual could be used not just with DSS, but also with the health department
That's what
and
I
other
meant for
other
health and
departments that
DSS.
we need too, you know, so.
That's a recurring expense, isn't it? Because that's salary.
Correct.
There's not hardly anything that's a one-time. It's just recurring. Oh,
They have vacancies in the DHHS as well, Ms. Angel? Do we capture any of that, or is that used with part-time or overtime?
That is,
Any lapse
yes,
salary there?
yes, that
We do.
is one of the uses for sure. And whatever else falls out into their fund balance is used the following year to balance their budgets.
We use some of that to take and pay for, move it around. Do we use some of that to pay for, we had to stay with certain people? Or is that come out of another line item? Like, that come out of another line item? Okay.
I'm sure that comes out, that's already probably been.
Do we have that language software in the county?
I don't think. Would you like to speak on that?
It's
Language software.
They currently use, don't believe there's a language software. They currently had a, Marty system is what it was called, but it was a connection that connected them with interpreters all around.
Okay,
But it wasn't a software that I
okay.
understand.
It seemed like I heard something, I don't know where it was, but it's supposed, but it's gotta be secure because of the HIPAA laws and everything.
It does, which is
Okay.
why we can't use Google Translate or any kind of anything on your phone, because we don't know what data that software is collecting and how it's being used, and we have to be very careful with HIPAA and medical information.
Is there anything that we can add on to what they're using now to make it helpful for the health department?
There may be, I'd be glad to check into that. I can't speak to it, but I'd be glad to
Because
check
that
into
might
that.
save some money. I mean, you won't have to get the salary if you have that technology.
I would
I know
imagine
it's-
they would have researched that, you know,
I
before
can
asking
follow
for
up
a
for
person.
sure.
Okay.
I'll follow up.
Wake Med had a system that they would bring to the room, almost like a kiosk, and it would translate in the room. Don't know what it is. I know nurses are starting to use that, and of course, technology has an expense as well. I don't have a problem putting it back in. If
Me neither, but, you know, just looking at some other options.
I agree. I'm fine with putting that back in for a translator. I am.
Okay, well, I'm making notes, and then we're gonna go back and discuss each one of them.
Did we take the translator out?
Translator was cut.
It's cut.
What?
It was already cut in, it was cut out of the, budget.
Is that all you have, Commissioner Williams?
That's all I have.
Thank you.
I don't really have a whole lot. The painting of the parking lot at the Maxwell Center.
Say that again?
The painting of the stripe in the parking lot at the Maxwell Center.
Repainting the parking
It's,
lot.
Yes. Is that something that's needed right now when, I mean, I look at the parking lot outside, that I can't find the lines when I pull up. It seems 10 times worse than the Maxwell Center, in my opinion. I feel like that money would be better used here first, and then doing the Maxwell Center maybe next year. I mean, those lines are almost invisible.
I'm good with that. I mean, that's a recommendation from facilities that they requested.
Yeah, I mean,
But I mean,
it's.
how they spend it, I mean, if it needs it done here, then obviously it's just as important here as anywhere else.
I mean, it's, the Maxwell Center is like, it's way better, 10 times better than out there in that parking lot.
That's not really a removal, that's just a
Yeah, I mean,
reassignment.
I just looked at it and was just like, yo, I mean, it could be spent somewhere else.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I have my, which we all know this, I have my issues with the T-hanger. I just think it's not something that's needed right now. That money could be used better somewhere else. You're talking 12 planes at most. So then, it's not like I don't feel that we're gonna get an extra 12 people out there with planes at the T-hanger. The ones that are probably the old T-hanger are probably gonna move to the new one. So it's just gonna offset it, and we're gonna still end up not making that money back for years. That money can be used somewhere a lot better, in my opinion. They help way more citizens. I mean, you're 12 versus 120,000 in the county. $1 million is a lot of money.
Is that T-hanger, is that got, it's got bathrooms and offices in it?
Actually, there's no bathrooms for any of those T-hangers. There is gonna be a bathroom in this new T-hanger. To provide a bathroom facilities for those other T-hangers that have them.
So it's gonna be each individual piece, or is it gonna be?
No,
one
it's just
set
gonna
of-
be on one end.
One end
The public
for all along?
restroom is gonna be on there on one end.
And offices in there or not?
No, no offices.
That's really it for me. When we talk about some other things, I'll discuss it then, but I'm okay with that.
You done, Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Okay. Want to make sure
I'm good.
You good?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Rivera, did you have anything else?
Are we gonna go back over everything, I guess,
I'm gonna run through them, yep, so I can get a head nod, so we'll have to take this back, work on the, what it'll come out to, pennies wise. You know, it'll take some time to do that, and we'll get back with you, but, so, what I have here is, SROs, funding SROs at $500,000.
which will put, if everybody's on, everybody does their part, it'll put all it's put resource officers in every school full-time. Well, there'll be coverage in it. It ain't got to be full-time.
This budget will reflect the $500,000.
Right.
Okay. Of course, we agreed to unrestrict school funding and move all of those expenses into current expenses.
Including Wish.
Correct.
Okay.
Is everybody in agreement on that?
So that's gonna give us full,
Credit.
credit, and that's even that 500,000 that we're putting in for their SROs.
That's what I was about to say. That hits our budget. That wouldn't hit. We pay those individuals. So that would be in the SRO budget. That wouldn't be a school allocation.
But
So we don't get credit for any of the SROs.
why would we not get credit for SROs? Because that's their job, is to
Because it
protect.
doesn't come out of the current expense budget, current expenditures budget for the schools. It comes out of county line items.
Because they're employed by the
They're employed by the county.
I know that, but it's a service so do we need to do a contract thing with the school system to be able to be able to,
The
That
school
would be a
system.
legal question.
So we've had a contract in the past. It's usually a 2-year contract, maybe a 3-year contract. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it is up for renewal this year. If you all wanted to get into specifics about the funding, what I would recommend is that we have an addendum that lays this out with the school system.
well, I would think that, in my opinion, I would think we need to have, that's something we need to be getting credit for.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, we have not included the money only because the school system, that grant funding does not come in until much later in the fiscal year, so that we can't necessarily.
But that's $1.6 million. $1.6 million that we're not getting credit for, that we're funding towards schools.
Right, yeah, it's just
You
not a
see what I'm
direct
saying?
allocation.
They would
I
have to become
understand.
school employees.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a direct you can't
Even
pay
if we
the
do a
school system
contract?
that money because they're our employees.
Yeah.
Couldn't the school contract with the SRO, and we just fund that for them to pay the sheriff for those services?
That's not how it's traditionally been done.
Well, could we not do it that way, though? Could we not have the school actually have the contract with the SROs, and we just simply fund them into our general funding, and then they reimburse the sheriff?
Not how they're currently paid, no. Not how your employees are currently paid. They would basically take on the form of 1099s with the school.
Could that be no longer contracted through the county?
It'd be
It'd
no
be a
longer county
contract with,
employees.
yeah,
That's
it'd be a
what I'm talking-
contract with the school system.
That's what I was
So
talking
we'll cut
about,
all of
yeah.
that out.
We couldn't have a contract that we're gonna provide X amount of whatever for the school system for SROs, and it's $1.6 million. And that 700 and whatever thousand, that's every year? I mean, it's a 2-year deal? Is that 710, or is that a 1.4 million?
The grant,
Yeah,
the grant's a 2-year grant that the district has to reapply for every 2 years.
but how much is the grant?
Which
though?
is why it's usually a 2-year agreement. Now, the first year when we expanded the SRO program, we did include the financials only because there were so many upfront equipment issues. We can certainly do that again, but they would still be considered
The grant-
employees of.
Grant funding depends on how much the General Assembly allots for that particular line item in their budget, and then how many school districts apply for those funds. Because we asked for over $1 million in this 2-year cycle, because there's a max. of
So
what
you're
you can
saying
ask
that
for.
it's actually $300,000 a year?
No, the grant is, it's $640, $680, something that a year for 2 years, each, with 600, whatever each year. Because it's a 2-year grant, but you can ask for a max to a certain amount.
But what I'm asking you is the amount, the total amount, that 709,000, whatever it is
Annually.
it 709 every year? So it's a $1.4 million deal.
Right, because it
So,
over two.
right,
over
okay,
two,
okay.
right.
So I would say, look at doing some type of a contract and to be able to at least get credit for the amount of money. We're talking about 1.6 now.
And Andrew, when you meet with the school finance officer, make sure you include that.
Okay?
Have them include it when they report to DPI,
LGC.
LGC, whoever.
But that's not a unique position that we're in.
Right.
I mean, SROs throughout the state are employed by the local law enforcement
Right,
agency. So if we're not getting credit with DPI, nobody else is as well. But we can certainly have that contract in place with specifics about how much we fund each year. That would be
Yeah.
fine. But they would still be employees of the sheriff.
But that's not a problem. I'm just wanting to make sure we're getting credit. But now, I was told from the superintendent that DPI, that they send the information to DPI and DPI sends it to whoever.
Public school forum.
But that's a private.
Public school forum
School
is,
system that looks after schools.
All right, what's next, Chip?
Okay, moving along. Move the capital small project funding from 2 to 2.5 million.
Say it again now?
Move the capital small project funding from 2 to 2.5
Oh, that's for the
million.
school
So
system.
we're adding 500,000,
More money.
right?
thank you.
Okay.
I need a nod on everybody.
I'm nodding.
Okay, teacher supplements at $1,317,000.
That's all you think that they'll be satisfied with that from here on?
That's all I'm going to go at this point in time. But I think that will, as we discussed at the last meeting, based on where the district is now, I think that will fund them. Remember part of what that proposal was, is it moves them from a percentage over to a flat rate. So that gives them something, as well as I think as us as a funding arm, that's stable to predict, that insulates them from any increase that the state general assembly may give them. I also think in reality, one of the reasons I appreciate everybody's obviously honesty and frank discussion of what we're supposed to have, is that the district is declining. So as it declines, 1.3 million should cover their supplements
'Cause they're gonna
for a
be-
while.
Removing, I need as many teachers and many principals.
Because the ADM unfortunately right now is not going up, so that pot shouldn't be 1.4, 1.3, because you're not adding additional staff. If that makes sense.
My hesitancy here on the nod is, again, how are we going to justify the quarter-cent sales tax? Is it possible that we agree to a one-year funding of supplements and that we will put forth the quarter-cent sales tax for continuing funding?
If you do 1 year and.
Well, that's all we're doing anyway in this
That's right.
budget, just 1 year, right?
But if you agreed to it, right, we've agreed to a continual expense.
Well, do understand,
I understand where you're going.
a different board could be up here and they could cut that funding.
That's right.
So I'm just saying, let's go ahead and put the strings on it so people realize they've got a vested interest in voting for the quarter-cent sales tax to continue that supplement from here on out.
That'll be an agreement that we put in place to really keep
Yeah.
the.
So we'll fund it this year,
For the 1.3
So what happens
million.
if the quarter cent doesn't pass?
then we'll deal with it next year.
Yeah, among y'all's a
But we're gonna
survey,
deal with it next year anyway.
yeah, among y'all's a surveys and stuff from parents and stuff. What is some of the things that they say that is needed in the schools and different things? I mean,
Oh, no, Ms. Barber.
I can wrap that up very quickly. They all want brand new schools, they all want.
well, I mean, there's got to be certain things, not such big things.
Well, buildings are obviously important. And I think this commission board has done a great job of trying to get these schools and committed to it. But the other side is if you can't put a qualified teacher in a classroom, then you're going to struggle with the results that those students get.
So the qualified teachers will help make it better grades and performances.
That's what you want to see, is you want to see qualified teachers.
And with all due respect, I think that initially we looked at Evolve And I think that, you see the other schools, they have evolved, and it helps supplement a little bit of the SROs. And so I think that in the future, maybe we need to focus on at least getting some of the school coverage with that, because that's gonna save some of the money that we're spending today to cover those SROs.
What the problem would evolve, or with any kind of AI stuff like that, the law enforcement officer, what I've been told, cannot actually be looking at the screen that somebody, a school official's got to be looking, and then the SRO is gonna stand behind it, and then they'll be the ones that address the person after the fact, if something's found. So that's not gonna, it's just another piece of equipment that's gonna be, you're gonna have to keep up. I mean, based on what they were, because we asked.
Teacher
that at the-
supplement.
yeah.
Teacher supplement,
That's
one
right.
point 3 million. I need to know.
I don't have a problem with it. I just think I hate if the next year we say we're not gonna do it. I don't wanna take anything from them once we say we're gonna do it. I think there are ways we can get the quarter-cent sales tax approved in a vote, but that's gonna be an agreement with the board too. If my district, what is my district gonna get out of it? What is Antonio's district gonna get out of it? People in my district ask me all the time, what does the county do for my district, for us? Because 90% of the people, 95% of the people are in the county, are in the city. So those are the questions that we need to be answering and looking at and focusing on. We're gonna use this money for these projects to help build up each district, each community, and I think it'll pass. But when you only got certain people for it, it's gonna be a problem.
So, look, what are you saying as far as, give us an example?
I don't really, that's just
I
my
understand.
take on it. I can come up with some stuff that's needed, you know what I mean? I'm pretty sure Antonio can, and anybody can. Some things that's needed in that district. Like your district may need a new fire station, you know what I mean? I don't know, but it could be something that's going there. Or help with it, or a fire truck or something, I don't know.
I would think that I'm personally, I think that would be the driving force to get the sales tax passed myself,
What's that?
is the teacher, decide on projects that we're gonna do, but I think that because the teacher supplement is gonna affect all districts, all the school system. As far as if you use that for as a driving force per se to get the school sales tax passed.
And that's my point, and that is, Commissioner Foster's correct. People say, well, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
It's all, well, you're talking about only $3.4 million, and if you spread that across the county, where can you affect more people than teacher supplements? Because it affects the schools and the education and the quality of their education. So I'm just saying, I think we need to use that as one of the motivators in order to pass the quarter-cent sales tax.
I think that's a separate conversation than what Chip's asking us to.
Well, it is and it isn't.
Say yay or nay.
I say yay to that, but I agree, when it's time to have a conversation about the quarter-cent sales tax, getting on the ballot, how we're gonna promote it, and who's gonna be involved, from the school district to the commissioners, to what we're gonna do.
What the issue is just like Bevan just said, if you got you got to have some projects that's actually lined up, and then if you start, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna do 1.3 million, and if next year we can't do it, we're gonna take it away? What I'm saying is, we don't need to start something we can't keep on, and I just feel like that I think that the school system and the community would get behind that and then start coming up with the other part from the other $2 million that we're gonna do X, this year or Y the next year or whatever, because that's not gonna do nothing but just grow. I think we need to hold off on the thing myself, but that's just Chris's opinion. And use the quarter-cent sales tax this year as the piece. I'm all for giving them a supplement, and my proposal was giving them more money, 1.7 million. But that's the reason I asked you, where you think they were giving them 1.3.
And I'm telling you, and it would be protected from any commissioner cutting that item going forward, because it's designated quarter-cent sales tax, and it grows every year.
Right.
So that's the reason why the state switched over so much to sales tax on revenue, because it grows every year.
But we can't wait till November or a primary election to fund something. It needs to be funded now if we're going to do it, because hiring begins now. School starts in August.
And that's why I asked whether or not the school, from their reserves, could go ahead and fund it this year, and let's put it on the ballot, and then we will look at it next year, if it passes, or if it doesn't,
You're kicking the can. You're kicking the can. The request is simple, a penny on the tax rate for teacher supplements.
But
The
what are you
school
gonna
district-
use to sell the quarter-cent sales tax?
You can still use it to sell a quarter-cent sales tax.
They're gonna say you already got the
That's right, you already got funded.
tax on it. I mean, what I'm saying is, we need to, I mean,
We tried for 3 or 4 years to sell a quarter-cent sales tax. It has not passed yet. I went to every municipality in this county and gave presentations with Mr. Mayo and others to try to get people to vote for this. They did not vote for it.
What county's done different than we did now, that passed? That's what
That's
we
where we
need to
have
look
to go
at.
and look, yeah. And I think those that might have passed have designated that
That's why I
to
said
use for
it's
sale,
a simple thing. You gotta designate it. People have to see what they're getting for it.
for that tax.
Simple.
And I think overall, when we first, when you guys first pushed it, when we was on the city side, there was a lot of issues with the Board of Education here, where financially, there was some mismanagement of funding. So a lot of people didn't believe it.
Yeah,
I
bad
was
taste in
one,
their mouth.
I was one that didn't support it, to be honest with you. So maybe, now financially, you guys are in a stronger position, maybe it will pass,
So what are we saying? Because Chip needs to know.
We got a head nod for me to support it.
So that's one.
I'm fine with it.
You're not.
I'm fine with support. I support.
That's two, that's three. It's three.
You got one right there?
Ms. Barber, you're, yes, that's in. Okay. Back to the detention officers, leave them at the 8 they're in. If he wants more, come back later and request. It's kind of where we left it a minute ago.
That's my thought, but somebody else may have a different.
I just don't know his need, but, I mean, he may be right back July 2nd asking us. But
he told us 12, sitting up there, and he told us 12 the other day when me and Bevan went and met with him.
So,
He said he recommended cutting 12, not adding 12, cutting 12.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did.
No, he said he
And
never. he never-
then we gave him back 8.
he said that, who came and presented, who was that presented? I can't remember.
Kate,
Who came and presented the
Todd, from the architect.
architect
Yeah.
had cut to 16. Like you said, the sheriff did was over there, he didn't say anything at that time. And then he came back saying he needed the 8. I guess once he saw it was built, whatever, I don't know. But then he's saying now that he think he needs 12. I never heard him say he was cutting 12. But he didn't speak up when the architect was here, and that's a fact.
I just
Well,
think-
let's do this. Let's go ahead and go with what you're recommending as such, but with a caveat. He cannot transfer any of those funds from detention officers anywhere else in his budget.
So we're going with 12 or we're going with 8?
8. That's what's in my proposed budget.
Which you can't fill
Which
anyway.
Gave him back 8.
That's right, which you can't fill anyway. So it's gonna end up costing us more to operate the jail that's more efficient than the one we currently have. I'm voting yes, and let's move on.
Commissioner Foster.
That's fine.
I'm good. We
Okay.
just know he's gonna come back.
Gosh.
I mean, if he
Well,
has
when he
to
doesn't
come
do
back.
it. That failed. Move the sheriff's pay, scale from Jan 1 to July 1.
No.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Oh, yes, yes.
I mean, that's
We got a
three.
tie here, no.
That's a tie.
Tie.
So it doesn't, how would we rate that? Had no pass.
Yeah, what I would recommend, I mean, if anybody this always can change when you go to take action on the budget. So what he's doing right now is just taking recommendations to put into the final budget. If a majority wants it taken out or something put in, you can always take action on it, so.
We did a pay study, we agreed this is the way we were going with it, why are we changing it? I mean, what good is our pay studies and our recommendations if we're gonna go ahead and change it midstream?
He requested it.
Can
All
I
right, it
clarify
fails.
something? There was not a pay study done on them. They requested to be outside of the pay study, and they proposed this Plan A themselves,
Last year.
Who?
the sheriff.
We didn't do a pay study?
Last year. That was the last year. Okay, it's out. Build fleet maintenance shop. Add fleet maintenance at 900,000.
Y'all adding pennies.
Commissioner Fox.
If it's, I'm okay with it. I'm okay.
Passes. Commissioner Daughtry.
You already got 4 votes, so move on.
Okay. All right, and then we leaving sheriff's cars at 0.
Absolutely.
How with that? I think, I mean,
Okay. And we could show some budget corrections there that Commissioner Daughtry came up with. Digital library, we discussed that. Some dollar amount was, 400,000 was the last dollar amount.
No.
Just because it's not funded doesn't mean we still do not proactively go about trying to find some source of funding, so.
Well, I think you need some kind
But
of cost
Lots of
here.
things.
Let's study the possibility of using some, libraries in the schools.
Suggestion.
DSS Haitian
Yeah.
Creole interpreter.
that's a yes for me.
All right, wait a minute, what was the thing on the library?
It was no pass.
Okay.
It did not go in. This did.
Haitian interpreter.
And that's it.
And what was that?
It was passed.
Haitian Creole passed.
That was 67?
65,000.
65,000,
65,000.
and half of it basically reimbursed or about.
Yeah, the DSS half.
I think we just added 3 cents to the tax rate.
We,
They interpret for the health department, that will not be reimbursed.
right, but the DSS,
For DSS, it would be,
right,
yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
before we adjourn, I'd like to say something.
It was DSS requesting that, okay, I thought the health director was requesting that.
But the interpreter's gonna be in the Health and Human Services building, so if
Yes.
they needed interpretation,
Absolutely.
you'd provide it. You just won't be reimbursed.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, I think the July thing, now think about this, I think, we're losing deputies and detention officers
But we
because,
don't know why.
I know, but if you put it to July instead of January, I think that will help maybe some of them wanting to move on. That's just my opinion.
I agree with you on that. I think it
Yeah.
should be
I
July.
mean,
But
if
it's
that's
already
there,
January.
No, it should be July.
So in
I'm
other words,
talking
the pay
about putting,
plan was for
starting in
January.
July instead of January 26th.
The move,
January 1, 26, and they were talking about moving it forward to
Oh, I know what
July.
they're saying.
and it failed.
Because we're losing 5 right now because of,
Oh, we voted. That failed.
I
That
mean,
failed.
it's just a
Oh, it's
few thought,
3-3.
food for thought.
It's 3-3, but that doesn't pass.
Okay.
I know. I
But
just
but
wanted to
again,
throw it out
anybody
there.
can make a motion to add whatever they want in the budget before you take action. This
We
is
can see
just,
that next meeting. Do we? I need to go.
this is just an informal conversation.
What was the total on those increases?
190, what was it?
Come out on the jail.
On all of that increase?
We'd have to work through that.
Well, my figure is a little over 3 million. Have you got a number there?
We would have to work through it. Well, you got a number?
I do, 3,009,900.
3,009,000?
900.
3,009,900. That's 2.28 cents.
2.82 cents. Well, it's a little less than 3.
2 point what?
2.28.
2.28, not 2.8. Unless,
We'll come back with a.
so is there anything in the current budget thing that could be reallocated or moved to another year, or?
Cut.
We'll go back and look.
Even in the
We'll come up with the
maximum.
best recommendation.
I mean, I'm the only one that came up with any revenue, guys. I mean,
Well, that's why we keep you hanging on.
is there any way we can reduce some spending somewhere? But you're gonna look at that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
be excused.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Williams.
Yeah, I just want to say something. We lost a good friend out of Smithfield, Marlon Lee. He was a councilman there. And it's just a big loss for that community. It's a big loss for all of North Carolina. And he's going to be having arrangements for viewing Sunday, June 1st. That's at St. Peter Church of Christ Disciples of Christ at 1011 Macy Street, Smithfield, North Carolina, for anyone that wants to come pay their respects. The funeral service will be Monday, June 2nd, at the Clayton High School Gymnasium, and viewing from 11 a.m. until 12 noon. And the funeral will begin at 12 noon. Thank you so much. He's going to be missed.
Madam Chair, if I could, we lost another fine gentleman here from Wayne County, a former county commissioner, served 2 terms, former House member, and most recently, before he retired, was actually on a Southern Wayne Sanitary Board, and that was former House member Efton Sager passed today, this morning. I do not know what the arrangements are, but he'll sorely be missed. He really worked hard for our county, and I hope everybody will keep his family in their prayers.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Commissioner Williams?
No, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Anybody else? Can I put the hammer down? We are adjourned. Thank you, guys.